Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay. It is so good to see you here today. I have a question for you. Have you ever said something where you really wish you could take those words back and you got yourself into a tricky situation and you just, I've just put my foot in my mouth and it's really awkward and you don't know how to move forward. So what do you do in those moments? Well, let's have a look at a story in the book of Matthew where Peter and Jesus find themselves in this kind of situation. So let's read Matthew chapter 17, verses 24 to 27. Let's go there. When they had come to Capernaum, those who received the temple tax came to Peter and said, "Does your teacher not pay the temple tax?" He said, "Yes." And when he had come into the house, Jesus anticipated him, saying, "What do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of the earth take customs or taxes? From their sons or from strangers?" Now, this was beginning to dawn on Peter what he just said and where this was going, and he says, Peter said to him, "From strangers, I guess." Jesus said to him, "Then the sons are free." So we'll pause there for a moment. So we find that Peter has just said something he shouldn't have said. He expected that Jesus would be like any other good God-fearing Jew, and he would want to, support the temple by sending this voluntary tax. It wasn't mandatory; it was voluntary, and it was this thing that had been set up for the past couple of hundred years in order to support the temple and the rebuilding of it and the upkeep of the temple. It wasn't something that any Jews or anybody had to actually send. It was something that they wanted to send, and Peter, would expect, Jesus is like the Messiah. He's this really cool guy. He's my rabbi. He's my teacher. Of course, he's going to want to support the tax for the temple, support the temple and everything like that. And these people who receive the tax for the temple tax, they obviously are in cahoots with the Pharisees and Sadducees and the whole system that doesn't like Jesus. And so they have come up with yet another trap to see if Jesus is going to play their game or not. And so they come to Peter. Now, the reason they come to Peter and not Jesus directly is because Jesus is actually living with Peter at Peter's home with him and his wife and his mother-in-law. And so Jesus is living under Peter's roof. So they come to Peter and ask, "Does your teacher pay the temple tax?" And Peter's like, "Of course he does. Like, why wouldn't he?" He's defending Jesus. He's like, yes, Jesus is going to do the right thing, obviously. But he didn't check with Jesus. He didn't think that there would be any reason why Jesus would not want to do this. And so he's like, of course he does. And so now he gets himself in the situation where he has publicly announced to some people that, yep, Jesus is going to pay taxes and I guess I'm paying those taxes as well. So now he has got to put his money where his mouth is, because his mouth literally just opened and said, "We're going to put money somewhere." Literal money. And so he comes back into the house and Jesus, knows everything. He knows what's going on. And so he says, "Peter, what do you think? Let's do like a thought experiment here for a moment. For any ruler on the planet, whether it is the Prime Minister of Australia or the President of the United States or the King of England or whatever they might be, who do they take taxes from? Do they take taxes from their sons, their own family? Is that what a royal family does? Don't think so. Like, the royal family are usually the beneficiaries of these taxes, right? No. They take them from strangers, people who are under their jurisdiction that they don't have a personal, close relationship with, right? And so Peter answers, he's like, "Oh yeah, I guess they take it from strangers. Where is this going?" And Jesus says to him, "Then the sons are free." So in this moment, who is Jesus identifying himself as? Obviously the Son of God, right? Jesus is saying, "Peter, I'm the Son of God. If anyone's meant to be taking taxes here, it's probably got to be me, not them. And I'm not the one who's supposed to be giving these taxes. Like, you've put me in a situation that I didn't have to be in, actually." But he also says sons plural. So when we are in relationship with Jesus, we are, he is our older brother. We are also sons and daughters of God, right? So in the sense here, Jesus is saying the sons, plural, we are all, Jesus and his followers, we are free. We are not under this system that is set up. We don't have to be sending this money, or we are not obligated in this particular way. But now he says, nevertheless, in verse 27, lest we offend them, go to the sea, cast in a hook, and take the fish that comes up first. And when you have opened its mouth, you will find a piece of money. Take that and give it to them for me and you. Okay, so Jesus has laid it out to Peter. Peter, you just said something that wasn't correct. You put us both in a situation we didn't need to be in. But even though we're going to be financially put out by this situation, rather than offend these people, rather than cause a worse situation, have to take back what we've just said, how about we just go along with it? It doesn't actually matter that financially we're going to be losing out in this moment. We're going to keep the peace. We're going to do our best not to offend people. Some people think that Jesus went around offending people on purpose, but no, he didn't. He offended people by his very presence, because they just couldn't put him in a box. They couldn't put him in one of their many different sects or camps or whatever they wanted. They had all these, vastly different ideas. They were all vying for him to be on their side. And if he wasn't going to be on their side, he wasn't allowed to be on anybody's side, right? And that's why they wanted to kill him. But yeah, he wasn't able to be put in this box. And he wasn't going around trying to offend people. In this story, we see he's deliberately trying not to offend people, trying not to get into any unnecessary problems in relationships with any groups of people at all. And we as Christians are expected to follow in his footsteps, and we would do very well to avoid creating unnecessary contention or bringing contempt upon Christianity or upon the name of God. So this is something that we can learn from this situation. Even if we say or do things that cause problems for ourselves, or if we find ourselves in problems whether we said or did anything in the first place, but oftentimes we cause our own problems that we don't need to by deliberately going out of our way to offend people, or by saying things that are not quite correct because we don't quite know what we're talking about, which is what Peter was doing in this situation. No matter what the circumstances, there are times where we as Christians find ourselves in positions that we really wish we hadn't got ourselves into, or that we didn't stumble into, however it happened. But there are some moments where it is the wisest course of action to take the hit, to have to part with a bit of money, to have to part with some possessions, to actually have to suffer for Christ in some way, rather than, demand what is rightfully ours. Because in this situation, Jesus and Peter rightfully did not have to send this temple tax. And yet what did Jesus do? He's like, we're not going to offend them. We're actually going to give this temple tax that you said we were going to. We're going to just keep it nice and smooth. And he actually created a miracle for that to take place. And the piece of money, if you look closely at the Greek, the piece of money that was in the mouth of the fish was equal to 2 of the individual pieces of money that was required to give to the temple tax, this specific amount for the year. So this one piece of money, it was actually a different piece of money from a different currency entirely, and it equaled, enough for the both of them, which is really good. So Jesus performed that miracle. He's not necessarily always going to perform a miracle to get us out of our sticky situation. Sometimes we are actually going to have to part with things and suffer. And that's not a bad thing. When we suffer for Christ, we are suffering with him. And Jesus died on the cross, and we see in the Bible, the servant is not above the master. So we as Christians, as servants of Christ, if we think we get to go through this life without any type of suffering, without any type of humility and just experiences that are uncomfortable, we're very much deluded. And I really want to just bring some reality into this situation right now. If you think that God is just going to whisk away your problems, he's not. He actually uses the tricky situations that we get ourselves into for our own personal character growth. When we go to heaven, we're only taking our characters with us, right? So it is the time that we have on this planet right now that is the opportunity for our characters to be developed into the characters that we're going to be taking into heaven. So I encourage you right now, if you are experiencing suffering or you're experiencing some type of difficulty, or if you are facing a situation where you are in the right and you could demand your rights, don't demand your rights. Take the hit. Don't cause offense. Be like Jesus, be humble, and just go with it, okay? I know it's really difficult to hear this sometimes, but I encourage you to pause this video here and spend some time in prayer and journal and read your Bible and really check out this passage in, if you need the verse again, it's in Matthew chapter 17, verses 24 to 27. Spend some time in this super random little passage, but really come closer to God and talk to him and repent of anything that you feel like, you're entitled to in this life. We are not entitled to anything. We are blessed by God to receive what we have. And if we think that we deserve more and we want to fight for that, that is not coming from a spirit of Christ. That is all from me today. I hope this blessed you and challenged you. Please send this to somebody who needs to hear it. I will see you guys again next Friday. Bye.